Welcome back, Kansas City Underground.
Thanks, Brian. It is good to be here.
Yeah, it is.
You can call me Cory. That's so stupid. That's so dumb.
It's good to be recording again in studio. I don't know. Why would I say that?
As opposed to,
yeah.
We don't actually record anywhere else.
Let's start over. Welcome back, Kansas City Underground.
Hey.
We're glad
let's start over again. Let's start over again. Go ahead.
Do you want to do this one?
Hey, welcome back, KC Underground and beyond.
We are here to record a podcast on thinking about multiplication, not thinking just addition.
Yeah, because we've been cruising. We've been cruising, Brian.
Yep.
We're just cruising along on these paradigm shifts.
Yep.
Right? We got 9 of them.
Someone texted me this morning and said, do you guys have anything on paradigm shifts? I know you guys have that stuff, but is it somewhere on the site I can download easily? And I was like, yeah, we got some stuff on paradigm shifts. We got a whole podcast series on it.
We got a podcast series. I started to work on like something that'd be a little more tangible, and then I got distracted.
Then you stopped,
Well, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes sitting down and writing something, although it's good, it's like, is this really the best? Anywho, so yeah, but on our missionary pathway, our primer, it's kind of listed out, and we don't dive into it much, but that's what these podcasts are for, Brian.
We're getting near the end too.
We are, which means we're gonna have to think of something else a new series to talk about the same stuff we always talk about.
That's true.
But it's been good. This has been good just to come at some of these conversations from a new perspective, or maybe just we're further down the road a little bit of being practitioners, experimenting for years, that sometimes these concepts we have some nuances or examples that are different than maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I think this one might be one of those conversations, right? The paradigm shift, if we're thinking movement, right? That's the big thing. The paradigm is not like good versus bad,
right.
Although some might be.
There's a few of those.
There's a few that we lean into that language a little bit more, but for the most part, we're just talking about different wineskins, different ecosystems, and different ways we're thinking about church. And in one sense, we've got a lot of what we'd call like the Western church paradigm, or the predominant model,
the institutional version.
Institutional, some people say legacy, whatever words you say, where we're trying to honor that as not a negative thing, while understanding that there's a lot of things that come with that, like characteristics of it, just functions of it, hierarchies or assumptions or whatever, just like you've got these things, roles. And then we think, okay, if we're not there, not all of it's bad, of course, but we're not there. We're over here in this other paradigm, this other ecosystem, this other wineskin. Well, then it's like it has certain characteristics also. And then so that's the whole idea, is like when we're jumping in 2 feet to a whole new paradigm, that it's not like, hey, do these practices. Don't just think, do these little things differently. Sometimes we want to move beyond that and be like, no, we're jumping in 2 feet. Yeah. So that's where this series is from.
Yeah, so today we're going after this idea that we come from models that were bring a friend, invite, and our growth was primarily about addition. Again, not bad, not wrong.
Mine was usually a subtraction, but yes, I hear what you're saying.
We're not thinking in the model that we grew up in. It was about again, bringing people to a space, engaging Jesus there, hoping they met Jesus. And, we're seeing people meet him, seeing people surrender to the lordship of Jesus. But it's not in a movemental paradigm that's thinking, how do we send people back out to engage their networks of relationships to see like generational growth of disciple making.
Yeah.
So one is about a slow process of seeing people enter the kingdom. Again, all of the stuff we talked about the last few times we've been in this series about sort of discovering like, oh, that system is set up for that. It's not actually set up for viral multiplication. Right. Like the system is not designed to think exponential growth. So as we start to think about disciple making movements in our cities across the West, we start to think a more movemental form of Christianity. We're not thinking of a slow, controlled growth. We're thinking of an exponential viral spread, and we're thinking like it's kind of out of control. Yeah, it's not, which again is probably something we'll have to talk about through this episode of like that's scary for some people.
Yeah,
which is probably part of why we don't lean into it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
A question we often get is like, well, what happens at generation 3 and 4 and 5 and 6? Like, who's leading them? Who knows them? Who, and it's like, well, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he's got control of it through the power of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some sense of, man, we're letting this thing go wild.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the questions we're asking is, what if the way that we have measured the church growth is actually, well, this is kind of a poke at you sort of question. The way we've been measuring church growth is actually slowing the spread of the gospel.
Ooh. Ooh.
I mean, it's a question about the systems.
Poke.
Yeah.
No, that's just a practitioner.
Yeah.
Thinking, like that. We're just pondering. You're right. Like things that grow and can seem good. In some ways, our desire to control it and to know it and to contain it puts a roof on it. And when we're talking about multiplication, we're talking about taking that roof off, like that unleashing. And there's characteristics with that, right? Like, I think of some big things, and I don't know what's in our notes, dude. So I'm just going to apologize to you
That's all right.
and the listener.
Yeah.
No, because I mean there are a handful of things that are just like key characteristics if you want to see things multiply. And the first one that we talk about all the time is that simple things multiply.
Yeah.
Complicated things don't. Things that are dependent on very gifted leaders don't multiply. Things where the regular human can do
where the 8 to 12-year-old can do it.
Yeah, that multiplies, right? So there's a simplicity on the main core DNA, right? That doesn't mean it can't be nuanced and looks different, or that there's even on the backside of things various levels of, like, I don't know, complication or just strategy to help steward simple things. But in the core essence of multiplication is that simple things multiply. That alone has stopped most multiplication, at least in our church and discipleship world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to multiply millions of dollars of facilities. Yep. It's really hard to multiply years and years of seminary training, right? Like, I mean, those are things like just right there off the bat. Those are two things that are like, we simply can't multiply just in that other paradigm.
Yeah. It's a slow process to do that. Yeah. So again, we want to ground these ideas in biblical examples. So we go back to the early church, right? Jesus models for us a way. We've talked about this, the 3, the 12, the 72, the 120, and they're all mobilized. Like, Jesus is not always inviting people to come and sit. He's inviting people to come and follow. So there's activity, there's equipping. Jesus sends them out. They come back, they debrief, they celebrate, they're trained in new ways. Jesus sends them out. And over that 3 years, and it's like, they're being equipped to be ready for when he leaves. A couple of weeks from now, I have a podcast from a good friend of ours, Rich Robinson. In his book, All Change, it was a cool experience. Talk to him about that. And this is never really thought about this before, but just highlighting it in his book, he talks about, if you just looked at like 3 years of Jesus' ministry, you're like, all right, 3, 12, 72, 120. Like, it doesn't look super successful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you go forward 30 years, it's like,
yeah.
And if you go forward 300 years, it's like the Roman Empire is being converted to Christianity. And so where do you begin to measure, the impact?
Yeah.
Like 3 years in, or like the work he did over the course of that 3 years led to exponential growth.
Yeah.
And so, something we often highlight as well as we think about multiplication, exponential growth, not addition, is to remember early on, it doesn't mean it will be fast.
Yeah. That's good.
Long term, it will have a greater impact if we think, I need to equip you to not be present with me.
Yeah.
What are the things you need? So we see That biblical exponential growth of the church through Acts, from this 120 in the upper room to 3,000 to 5,000 to Paul is taking it to Europe.
Yeah. Man.
So there's continual movement in that way.
So good. Hey, you must have really listened to what Rich had to say.
For 12 hours, we recorded his book. When you watch this podcast, our faces just look like, why are we recording a podcast right now?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I love that. Like, okay, so maybe I want to talk about from my perspective as kind of an apostolic leader, right? As someone who's been exposed to movement for years and years, there's I think a tendency to rush multiplication, right? Because I know how slow it is over here in this paradigm, and I know movement is supposed to move, and it's supposed to have
all things should move.
Yeah, there's all these churches and groups that start, right? And I do think there is that weird tension of like going slow to go fast, while not having our processes be slow or our mindset be slow. Like it's like the whole framework needs to be lightweight and multiplicative, if that's a word. It has to be there. We have to set that DNA from the beginning, and then we have to be patient and let things bake and not force it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that is so weird.
Lean into what moves rather than trying to force it all to move.
Yeah, and that's so interesting. Like there's that tension. It's like, no, we're talking about movement. We are movement people. We talk about multiplication. We multiply things. And then it's like, this feels slow. This feels slow. But over time you create this framework, this understanding, this patience on God, with like those things go hand in hand, I guess what I'm trying to say. There's this patient abiding in God and his work. You sow that seed, there's a mystery to it. All the parables of the seeds in the fields and every one of them that Jesus uses speaks to this idea, I think, of multiplication.
Yeah, yeah.
There's mystery. We wait on God. But the good fruit produces exponential results. So we're creating a framework. That's where that collision happens, right? Like we're patient, we're going at the speed of God, with the framework of taking the roof off, like, and letting the good things go wild. It's just like, it just feels really anti-Western. Maybe it's anti-human, but it feels anti-Western because we are top down, big thinking, especially if you're entrepreneurial or anything like that. So like the whole idea of like going slow to go fast is just really, it's hard for us.
Yeah.
It's really hard for us.
All right. I'm going to give you 3 characteristics of like, this is what helps define movement, to see exponential growth, to see multiplication, not addition. So I'm going to give you these 3, and then I would like to hear your feedback on each of these. Okay. So this is the paradigm shift, right? The paradigm shift as we move from addition to multiplication is we need to think 3 things: decentralized leadership, not dependent on a pastor or building; rapid mobilization, disciples making disciples immediately; low control, high accountability, empowering ordinary people. That's the paradigm shift to go from addition to multiplication. So to say it backwards while you continue to think about these things, the old paradigm that we have said we're going to move away from, it's not wrong, just moving away from, was dependent on pastors and buildings and key leaders and staff. You've talked about this already. The old paradigm that we're moving away from is not about disciples making disciples immediately, but the trained professionals at the building doing the disciple making, versus I mobilize you into a new network of relationships. And then the old paradigm is probably a lot more high control, and I would say actually low accountability. I don't know that accountability was really baked in at all. Like in different pockets it was.
Right, I agree.
Like different relational networks would highlight that. But in general, the expectation is I say things, see you next week.
Right.
Hope you bring a friend.
Right.
So 3 key characteristics to shift from that paradigm into a new paradigm of multiplication: decentralized leadership, rapid mobilization, low control, high accountability. Riff, Cory. Go.
Yeah. It's good. Let's do all those things. What's the first one again? No, because I'm like, you start to
decentralized leadership.
Decentralized leadership. Okay. So that's almost, I mean, that's kind of starting at like the systems conversation, right? I mean, kind of. Like you can go at it from a systems conversation, or you can go at it from a very organic, ground up conversation. Both of those things. But yeah, if we are assuming that the other paradigm is not that. I mean, like we're the controlling nature, like the like our lead, even the way in which we raise up leaders.
Yeah, I was gonna say, think about the underground, like, your work with Share the Hope, your work with Awaken. What has decentralized leadership meant for you?
Yeah,
you're not at the center of any of
face.
Those.
Yeah, you can't be the face, and and sometimes that'll bite you. Like, I mean, if there's strong, there are elements of strong leadership.
It's risky.
Yeah. And, like, so we've got examples, where that has shifted, and so if we had a more central piece of leadership there, it might have helped stabilize something, but in the end, it wouldn't have ever multiplied.
Right.
Like, so yeah, with things that we're building in the city, you're building a group of people to own something, right? So like that's one part of like to fight against centralized leadership is like you create teams. Everything always. Yeah. Like to always think teams in everything you do. So I think that's just practically one of the things. But then you also like this we fight almost everywhere we go. Is you create a flattened structure. And that is weird to people, and there's elements of that, and we're listening to people who are like, at some point,
there's a little bit of hierarchy.
There's some leadership, and we're like, oh, we totally agree. Like, there's some structure, but like, for the most part, in a movement, right, if you cut off the head of the snake,
is dead.
If it's not a movement, right, it's done, right? But if it's like the whole starfish conversation, that
the DNA is replicated.
Yeah, and then you cut at any point, it's like, oh, this whole arm falls off. But it's boom, it pops up 2-3 more, right? Like you just, it's my friend Roy Moran always used to compare it to terrorists and those cells. And my wife would be in these trainings and get so mad at that. And I'll be like, but she actually said it the other day. She's like, I remember getting mad at Roy, and she starts explaining, some of the conversations we're having in underground, we're always thinking about that next fractal level of multiplication and leadership. And she was saying it. She was like, in some ways, she didn't want to undermine the importance of this work that we've been doing. She goes, in some ways it doesn't matter. Like, cut it off. It won't stop what underground's doing. And I was like, I hope that's the prayer. So that's the first thing I think. Like, I think of teams and I think of flattened model. Yeah.
And also just again, honor the work that you've done is like, by not being the face, equipping other leaders, you're saying you can lead early on. Like, go for it. And raising up leaders in those spaces is how you do decentralized leadership. Is like, well, early on, I can't do everything. I have to immediately share, immediately invite people in to take responsibility, to do the spiritual parenting work. So it's very early on, and it doesn't have to be centrally located. It's like dispersing.
Yeah. I think when you think about leadership in the church, I think you and I were talking about this at one point. It's like, I think of APEST, apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher. We see in Ephesians 4, in the same way that I think of leadership in this. It's like everyone, in a sense, leans maybe towards more of one of those hats, right? More of their gifting. And it's not just for leaders, and it's not just for whatever. It's everyone. In the same way, I'm like, leadership is for everyone. In some capacity, in some form. And there are various ways to release leaders all the time. Like, we emphasize releasing leaders in the traditional movement, person of peace thing. Like, they may not know Jesus, but they might have influence. So for my personal world, through the years, have been lots of settings. A lot of the early stuff was in jails, and that was a great example of like traditional person of peace. You find someone.
You're leading into the next one, which is rapid mobilization.
Okay.
Disciples making disciples immediately.
Totally. All of these bleed in. But my point is with, like, in the jails, finding someone, they didn't have to be a follower of Jesus yet. Actually, I didn't even necessarily care at that point in terms of strategy. is we're looking for hungry, open people who would have influence and gather people. And I want to exercise their leadership immediately.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have leadership and influence over people,
Yeah.
gather them. We're going to help you do a Discovery Bible study. You are leading
3 other people
right now in discipling people. And you yourself may not even know who Jesus is yet, or like Jesus is Lord in your life. That's okay. Am I asking that person to be an elder of a spiritual family?
No,
I'm not. Right.
Yet.
And it may be a little bit quicker than what we tend to think. Partly that's part of the timeline conversation too. So anyway, so that's like the first thing I think of. That there are levels of leadership. Like we can always push somebody into some form of leadership, or we can always encourage people, and that's very different, I think, than the other paradigm we sit in.
So you hit rapid mobilization, I think, because in the process of leadership, you're saying as soon as you discover even just spiritual hunger, not necessarily even full surrender, you can be mobilized to discover with others. So disciples are making disciples immediately. We're not saying you have to go on a 14-year journey in the desert to arrive somewhere. Paul did it, but not everybody does. Like the rest of his ministry, he's immediately equipping people and sending them. So even the way he was sort of formed was not the way that he continued to multiply that out, right?
Yeah.
But then this final piece, which again, you would see in the early church and in the letters that Paul is writing to them, low control, high accountability. So biblically, like most of those letters are just going like, hey, I am going to tell you to do some things because you're sort of doing it wrong. Stop doing those things. But most of it is like, remember when we talked about this, like when we shared this, like live into that. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? You know what I mean? Like you were drawn by grace. Don't go back so quickly to the law. Right. It's like, I'm not making you do X, Y, Z, but like I am holding you accountable to what drew you into this. Like don't go back to that. So underground, your experience, everyday disciple makers, how's that played out for you?
I mean, it's as vast as the people here, but I mean, just think of settings. Man, I'm thinking of a lot of examples right now that often when people just feel freed up to do it, to immediately, like to actually replicate themselves and go, there's the expectation of like, you have to bring it back to here, or you have to, get the permission here. For some people, like that's enough. And you just come with them real quickly, and there's a tool. But there's just like, as you're talking about scripture examples, I'm like, the reality is like the framework, the thing that's existing at the time is that Paul wasn't there when he wrote those letters. He was not there. There was full on autonomy.
He had to write a letter because he was not there.
He was not there. Like the leadership that was present on the ground was leading. He'd already pushed that leadership, right, to go emerge, do it. And you can coach and train and lead, but like the very nature of there's no phone calls, you can't FaceTime or Zoom someone, you're somewhere else. It's like, it takes a long time.
And that, man, sorry to interrupt you, but good. Like it speaks so much to the trust in what the Spirit of God is doing. Because not only is Paul not there and he has to write a letter, it took a few months for somebody to get to him and go, hey, this is happening. And he's like, okay, I got to write a letter. Does anyone have papyrus and ink? And then
I've got to write condemning incest. This is a big deal. I need to write this letter now.
And then it's going to take several weeks for it to get back and then disperse through the different churches in that area. And it's like, that I got to just trust that the Spirit of God is present and is not going to let this fall apart in the meantime. Which speaks to, in light of the paradigm shift, so much of like the barrier to this is that fear of losing control and learning to trust the power of the Spirit. Like Jesus said, I'm going to send you another to help you. And the another is one just like me, but it's not bound in space and time. Like the Spirit has the freedom, right? And we got to we have to lean into that. Like to exercise our faith, to let that expand, to say, okay, if we want to see movement, we got to do this. Equip and release. Send back into, mobilize. And then not lord it over them,
Yeah.
to use another Jesus thing. Like the Gentile leaders lead that way. They lord it over them. Are you doing this all right? Are you doing all the things? But to be invitational, to invite, and just like trust, and like the Spirit has been leading the church for centuries. It's not going to just like crash and burn. It's not on us. What is on us is to open-handedly send so that we help usher in the kingdom.
Yeah, man, that's good. What's number 3? Because I don't want to bleed in again to what's
the low control, high accountability.
Low control, high accountability. Yeah. I'll go back to that. Like, so I think, there's a reason we haven't seen a lot of systems in the West multiply well, or at least have sustainable multiplication. So that's like, we're a few years into this, and we have stories of multiplication. We have more stories of 1 to 2 generations, way more 1 generation.
Yeah.
But we definitely have some streams or examples where we've seen multiple generations, and they, what we're discovering is it's definitely not all the same every time, and even each network of relationships, is different. Some really are open to multiplication in other ways, ways that other networks aren't. So, so yeah, we you're working in suburban America, some of our stuff is that things are slow.
Yeah.
But there's often a little bit more, it's solidified more. There's friend groups that, but it's really hard to multiply because people are kind of sucked into a thing. There are certain networks that are really open to multiplication. Maybe the settings are highly communal, or they're transient people and they're already moving already. And we see a lot of stuff in the military, right? So one of our hubs fosters a lot of stuff.
I just heard some cool stories from them too, man.
Dude, so if you want to throw in, I don't know if you're able to throw. We're also not able to tell a ton of those stories. So we don't
multiple generations of discovery Bible studies and groups that are beginning to form into microchurches.
Yeah, man, so good. So obviously, like, networks are different, which makes us lean into the principles and not just the strategies. And that actually, I think, is helpful for us in the West. So we're going to go at the speed of God. But what you were thinking is we are creating the ecosystem and the expectation, the language, the large picture, big picture vision of, no, we're not always just going to stay here. We have to multiply. We have to send new things out all the time.
Yep.
That's where, to me, it's like, you don't have to get caught up on the form as much as you get caught up in that. We're going to send new things constantly. And that does help just create that culture.
All right. Last little piece here. Final word. We've been speaking at a very network level thinker.
That's true.
Like, we're thinking anytime somebody wants to connect to this network, we're not immediately thinking, oh, let us find a microchurch for you to join. We're actually going, oh, you found us. How can we help you begin to make disciples? Among whom to whom have you been sent? So that's great for those that think at that level. Ordinary disciple maker in the network. If you were speaking to, the mom of 3 crazy teenage boys or something, like this, going like, I want to do this, but what does this multiplication thing mean for me?
First is, you can do this, and you are uniquely called to do it, and you don't have to carry expectations or burdens of a really heavy thing.
And you don't have to lead the whole citywide movement.
You don't.
None of us do.
You don't even have to lead all of the stuff around you. You just get to help facilitate, get to be present. The language we've stolen a lot is set the table so that people can hear from God. You don't have to have all the answers. So first of all, multiplying something simple like a Discovery Bible study is the reason why that's always present in movements, is because it's simple and we're setting the stage. But the mindset of Discovery Bible Study, where we're joining God and we're listening to what He has to say, and we're creating spaces where people can experience God, that is reproducible at every level, right? So say you're a mom of these teenagers, and we help you think, who are the people that you're already doing life with? I've found there's a lot of stuff that happens when people have kind of this idea and they're like, I'm just going to text these people.
Yeah.
Like, because you already have trust. I'm not saying you should cold text people you don't know. I don't know how you have their number anyway, but like I keep hearing stories like that where people like through listening prayer or just time, with the Lord, and these people keep coming to mind. They're blessing them and they're blessed 5, thinking through, and they're like, I'm just going to text these people and start something. Mm-hmm. And like that actually works a lot. Like people lean in to people you may not expect to lean in. Right. Yeah. So like that's like, you might have more influence than you think simply because you might know and love a few people. Yeah. So that's the first thing I think of. What about you?
I didn't know you were going to kick it back to me, and I was trying to think about how to like wrap this.
Okay,
up.
let me keep thinking then.
I mean, I like the little piece though of just the simplicity of I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was something like you don't even have to lead everything around you.
Yeah.
Like when you just think of that micro level, it's. I mean, again, like the danger for us is that we build micro churches around really gifted, charismatic people, mm-hmm. and then it's just a smaller version of what we had. Yeah. If we're not inviting people to go, hey, will you set the table this week? Yeah. And I literally mean set the table with food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, it's a simple little thing. Like this past Sunday when we were gathering in our space, I was like, I just like 5 minutes before we started, I just leaned over and said, hey, after that first section, when we sang a couple of songs, which occasionally we integrate that. I said, hey, when I'm done with that, because I'm the one leading that, right, rather than me going, hey, what are you guys thankful for? What are you celebrating this week? That's good. I just leaned over and said, hey, will you do that part?
Yeah.
And the dude beside me was like, yeah, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And the way he did it too, I was like, oh, that was good. Like, yeah. He led in with, hey, I just want to share something I'm really thankful for. And he'd like walk through that. And it was a cool moment. Then he goes, what about you? Anybody else want to share something? I was like, that's so much more invitational than the way I do it normally, which is like, what are y'all thankful for?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I want to throw this out there too. Multiplication does not mean you throw people out and you never see them again. It's all highly relational. We're walking with people. It's friend, so like in levels where I've seen multiplication, it doesn't mean you're severing relationships. You're just like, you're taking the next step in that relationship journey. And there are people who God is readying for multiplication. This is just from experience in the West. I have multiplied things too quickly to hit a vision of multiplication.
Yeah.
Instead of going in the timeline of God and try to multiply with the wrong people who didn't actually understand what we're doing, and like, now it's my turn to lead or whatever it is. I've done all those things poorly. Find the people within your setting. So let's say if we're talking about multiplication, it implies there's something already. So maybe you have a group or microchurch already. Look for those that God is stirring to the next level, and then spend time with them. Yep. And you don't have to have all the answers again. Spending time with them, just like the vision of like, you can do this. Just pass that vision on. You can do this. And then the form, the reason why we talk about things like DBS is because there is a form to then apply to something simple.
Yeah.
It's not about the form, but sometimes that's like, oh, okay, so I don't have to create all of this either, right? You're just okay. So just like, replicate permission.
Yeah.
And replicate relationships, and then that I think is a large part of the DNA of multiplication.
All right. So last thing, I'm going to wrap up with this. I have a next step for you. If you're thinking, all right, I'm in, let's talk about simple multiplication. What do I do? Missionary pathway, which we're going to change to disciple maker pathway soon.
That's good. We need to do that for years.
Yeah. But as a practical next step, missionarypathway.com, you could go and just sign up and just read through it yourself.
Yeah.
There's facilitator guys in there. Cool. But there's so much more that you'll glean from it as you invite 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other people to go, hey, let's just meet weekly for 7 weeks and go through this huddle. I would invite you into mine, but it will be like 2 weeks into it
by the time when this comes out. You hear this, yeah.
But I will say this, I will volunteer myself. If you need help getting it going, I will help you do that if you live in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this in Kansas City and you're going, I don't know what this missionary pathway is, missionarypathway.com, you'll get to read the primer where these paradigm shifts come from. But Yeah, we'd love to help you do that. We'd love to help you find 3 to 6 other people and just journey through these 7 weeks, because it is about mobilizing people into a new way of disciple making.
Yeah.
It's not the end. It's not a silver bullet. You won't see, well, you might see viral growth at the end of it, I guess. I shouldn't limit that. It's possible.
Yeah.
But it at least puts you in that framework to help you begin the journey.
Yeah.
So Brian at kcunderground.org, if you want to jump in, I'm available for it.
And his Venmo is Brian. Actually, I don't know what your Venmo is. I've never paid you before.
Anything else?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's good. Just in the end, like for us, and I keep saying things like ecosystem, right? These big picture language. We have processes, opportunities.
Sorry, I didn't mean to correct you.
For people, as we see multiplication, to continue to raise up leaders. But I once heard someone say, movement really is in the end like a leadership multiplication factory. We are constantly raising up leaders in micro ways and large ways. And so yeah, let's just keep doing that. Let's have that spirit of giving things away. Let's not have kingdoms that's about ourselves, but we have kingdoms that are mustard seed, like small things that multiply and good things that take root. And we get away from any kind of celebrity or status or power. Then you set the stage for multiplication, right? And a lot of that is humbly laying ourselves down. And my last thought with that is literally in Luke 18 this morning, and looking at those back-to-back stories, it was like, the sinner and the tax collector and the Pharisee, and they're both, at the throne, or at the altar. And, one says, "Thank you, God, I'm not like him." And then the other one can't even look up because they're like, "God, I'm a sinner. Have mercy on me." And Jesus says that, whoever humbles himself will be exalted. And then the story right after that is all the people trying to bring the little children to Jesus. And they're like, "No, don't do it." And Jesus is like, "No, it's for them." Like that multiplication is part of that ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's part of that understanding that the things that we lift up as the most important, the top of actually, if we were to be people who would lay that down, then that's the setting to see good things grow. Right. So I think that's really in the end what we lean on.
Cool, man. That was great. Next week, we'll be back with the final paradigm shift of
that's it.
Don't think, or think extended spiritual families. Don't think church.
Don't just think church, quote unquote. Yeah.
Well, because extended spiritual family means church for us.
Yeah.
But what we mean is don't think of building.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll have some fun with that. Have a great week.